The Game Boy has been a part of my childhood for, well, as long as I've had a childhood. This was my definitive handheld, and for decades, companies have been selling us on the promise of portability, but it really just never felt quite the same. But this is the Analogue Pocket, and in a way, it feels less like a new handheld and more like a game man. It's what the Game Boy would be like if it grew up, got a 401k, and finally bought that ridiculously nice TV that it always wanted. As for someone that grew up with a Game Boy Color, this thing is an absolute gem. It takes everything that was important back then and brings it back, but with the clarity that we could have only dreamed of, while tilting our screens upward towards a lamp. Let's talk about getting one of these first. The Analogue Pocket is available directly on their website for $219 US. But there's always a but. Stock on these can be a little hit or miss. These are available in black or white. As of right now, the black one is sold out, but the white model says that it'll ship pretty quickly. If you live in Canada like me, you get to play the fun game of currency conversion and import fee roulette. All in, you're looking at somewhere between 300 to 350 Canadian, sometimes upwards of 400 depending on import fees. So yes, this is a very expensive vertical handheld, and you might be asking why. The answer is because this isn't what you think it is. This isn't emulation, it's FPGA. There's no software pretending to be a Game Boy. The hardware itself is reconfiguring it at a circuit level to essentially become a Game Boy. It's less of an impressionistic painting and more of a perfect molecular clone. Right out of the box, this will actually play your Game Boy Color, or even your Game Boy Advance cartridges. With adapters, this can play even more. You can get into Game Gear, Neo Geo Pocket Color, and even the Atari Lynx. The software itself is pretty bare bones, essentially no flashy custom front ends. And honestly, I kinda like it that way. The Analogue Pocket knows exactly what it's here to do. So let's talk about the build. The whole design is very blocky, unapologetically so, like a Game Boy that went to IKEA, and came back with opinions about future minimalism. The buttons, well, they're rubber membrane, and they feel a little loose. The D-pad is the same. It's all very reminiscent of the original Game Boy Color, and almost feels exactly as I remember, though maybe just a little bit more mushier. The old Game Boy Color had more of a pivot to it, albeit not very much. It's still kind of a mushy D-pad. This feels just ever so slightly softer. You get this nice, big, and bright screen up top, even though it has a little bit of a bezel. On the left side, you've got some small volume buttons, and of course the power button. Over on the right side, the microSD card slot. And then there's the back. This is the main event, the cartridge slot. There's just something so satisfying, so real about being able to pick up a physical game from 20 years ago and play it directly on hardware like this. So let's talk about the display and the performance. On my Pocket, I'm constantly jumping between systems. Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance cartridges. And then Game Gear, Sega Genesis, and NES through the open FPGA cores. And across all of them, the screen is definitely the star. If the cartridge slot is the heart of the Pocket, then the display is definitely its soul. In terms of display, we're talking about a 3.5-inch IPS LCD panel with a resolution of 1600 by 1440. To put that into perspective, that is, and I'm not exaggerating, 10 times the resolution of the original Game Boy Color, with a pixel density of 615 ppi. That's just absurd. It's so crisp that you'll start noticing details in games that you never knew existed. You'll have a moment when you realize, oh, that's not really a smudge, that's supposed to be a decorative shrub. It makes these ancient games absolutely stunning. Systems like the Game Boy Color fill out that panel perfectly. What about a TV system like Genesis? Let's take a look. On a game like Streets of Rage, it looks great, but it won't fill up the entire screen. You can of course go into the core settings by pressing the analog button and change the display mode to stretch it. By default, it's set to fit. Using something like integer scaling won't cut off any of the picture, but it won't fill out the display either. Integer plus will fill out the entire display, but parts of the game are cut off on the edges. Personally, for Genesis, I just stick to the fit setting for the best results. Another system that I really like on here is the original Game Gear, but you will notice some slowdowns. But the key thing, that's the Pocket being official to the original hardware. A lot of these games just didn't run very well, even back then. It's definitely an authentic experience, slowdowns and all. For the most part, it plays these games beautifully, and I've had a great time with it. When it comes to performance, the word is perfect, because it's FPGA, not traditional emulation. There's zero lag and perfect accuracy. It's playing the game exactly as the developers intended. The battery life is just okay, giving you about 6 to 10 hours gameplay. The real hero here is the instant sleep and wake function. You can pick it up and play it for 15 minutes, put it to sleep, and pick it up hours later, right where you left off. It fits into the cracks of your day, which is what portable gaming was always supposed to be about. So I've had the Analogue Pocket for over a year now. The honeymoon phase is over. The hype is settled. Do I regret my purchase? Not at all. This handheld has become one of my absolute go-tos for classic gaming, especially for Game Boy. You know, a lot of modern retro devices are packed with features that I thought I'd miss, like fast forward. The Pocket doesn't really have that, and strangely, I haven't missed it. There's something about a device that encourages you to slow down, to play games the way that they were originally intended. It actually lets me enjoy them a little bit more than I expected. The day-to-day stuff is solid. The screen is nice and bright, easy to see whether you're indoors or outdoors. Speakers, which are these two little openings on each side of the screen, sound incredibly bright and clean for what they are. There's no fan, the device never gets hot, and it's incredibly comfortable to hold for long gaming sessions. And after a year of being my companion, it's held up really well. The plastic has a great matte feel to it. Despite its extensive use, it still looks pretty much brand new, minus a little bit of shine on the front where my thumbs rest. I did put an AM film screen protector on mine day one, and I suggest you do the same. This is definitely something that you'll want to keep in great condition. So look, Analogue is a company. They don't always have the best rep for their prices, their limited shipping options. For all intents and purposes, I get why people are frustrated. But despite all that, I absolutely love the Analogue Pocket. If I had to pick this or a modded Game Boy Color, I would probably pick this. And don't get me wrong, I still adore my modded Game Boy Color with its fancy OLED screen. But this device in particular, it just feels special. It feels like a game man moment. Like when you realize the toy you loved as a kid grew up with you. So the final question, after a year, what do I really think? Is the Analogue Pocket worth it? And should you pick one up? This handheld, first and foremost, is for people who grew up with the original Game Boy or the Game Boy Color in their hands. It's for people that want a faithful experience, or for anyone curious about FPGA and how it actually feels compared to modern emulation. I would also say that it's for the person that loves to collect physical cartridges. This does feel quite literally different. There's an immediacy here, a complete lack of input latency that, as good as emulation gets, it can't perfectly match. When you put a Game Boy cartridge in this, the The chip inside literally reprograms itself to be a one-to-one clone of the original hardware. And that's pretty cool, all by itself. So is it worth it? For me, absolutely. If you have a deep nostalgia for the original Game Boy or Game Boy Color, I can easily recommend this device. Now, if you're someone that prioritizes features like save states and fast forward for every single game, this might not be for you. Certain cores support features like save states, but it's not the main focus. For that, I'd probably recommend looking at something like the Analogue Pocket Classic. I'll leave my review to that down below. The screen is beautiful, even if it's not OLED. The speakers are bright and clean. The design is a nostalgic gut punch, and to be honest, despite it costing me a pretty penny, I really appreciate this purchase. It's a device that respects the past and almost does it perfectly. So let me know what you think of the Analogue Pocket in the comments below. Do you have one? Do you like it? What color did you pick? Or are you more curious about getting one and making the jump from emulation to FPGA? You've heard my thoughts, and that's my 2 cents on the Analogue Pocket. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy gaming.